I keep hearing people talk about this trans agenda, and I wanted to share a different perspective. Because for me, being trans wasn't this ideology, it was survival. Hi, my name's Abe, and I'm a trans guy. I've been seeing comments online on many different social platforms about this so-called trans agenda. Especially people saying that it's being pushed on to kids, or that people are being convinced to transition. Now, I obviously can't speak for everyone, and I definitely can't speak to what's happening in other countries. I can only speak from my lived experience. But I do know that it's important to speak some truth into all of the noise. Now, I'm a trans man, and my experience hasn't been a trend or a phase. It's my truth. I didn't have anyone make any decision for me. Now, it wasn't easy, it wasn't glamorous, it wasn't an accessible thing for me to go to the doctor and have the doctor tell me that I'm trans and put me on medication. It wasn't at all like that for me. In fact, it was extremely difficult because I had to jump through many hoops just to be heard and seen for who I am. It was honestly one of the hardest, scariest things I've ever been through. In fact, it was the hardest and scariest thing I've ever been through. And I made the decision to transition out of survival because if I did not start living as my authentic self, I would have done something really stupid. It was really about coming home to myself and living as my truest version. Please don't get me wrong, I don't think that anybody should be able to walk into a doctor, tell that doctor that they're trans or tell them what's going on and be handed out anything. I absolutely believe that there should be a very thorough process. There needs to be a lot of gender therapy. There needs to be a lot of support, a lot of help. So when I say I had to jump through hoops, it needs to be a process. There needs to be a process in which a person socially transitions and lives like that for a certain amount of time. And then we can start talking about hormones and surgeries and all of that stuff. But there definitely needs to be a process. I don't want to be misunderstood when I make it sound like jumping through hoops the way I did was a bad thing. It was necessary, it taught me a lot, and I had to go through that process in order to be really, really clear. Now, I know people are scared, and I know some have had some really painful experiences, and I'm certainly not here to take that away from any of you. But being trans isn't new. Having visibility is new. When visibility starts to surface, so does fear and misunderstanding. Now, when people say transgender, I think what they mean is I'm uncomfortable with how fast the world is changing. And as humans, we are really scared of the unknown. We tend to react before we have the education and understanding. And once again, I just want to say that the people out there that have had these terrible experiences, I'm not speaking to that and I'm not taking that away from you, but there is a broader narrative being played of this trans agenda that I'm addressing. Just because we don't have an understanding of something and it is uncomfortable, it doesn't mean it's scary or wrong. This isn't about pushing anything on anyone. It's about people now having language to explain their feelings and situations. It's about people having language now for what they've always felt, but never been able to articulate or understand or fit in. It's about having choice. It's about remembering who you really are inside. It's about having permission to express yourself freely. Like, trans people aren't being made or manufactured, they're being seen. Now, I truly believe that people are trying to protect what they truly care about. But sometimes when you haven't lived a certain experience, it's easy to project your thoughts, feelings, and fears out into the world instead of listening and holding space for other people's experiences. Now, in my world, there is no transgender. There's just people like me that now have the opportunity to live in alignment with who they truly are. And if that challenges the system, maybe the system is the problem, not us. And when we speak about children, that is a very sensitive topic. I wasn't a child when I transitioned, but I can tell you this. If I had the words, the language, the education on what it meant to be a trans person, heck, my life would have been a hell of a lot easier. I can't say that I would have transitioned earlier because this is just my lived experience and everything happens for a reason for me. But I wouldn't have felt so alone. I wouldn't have felt so misunderstood. And I would have had language to articulate exactly what I was feeling. I think we all need to question the system, but we need to not confuse the system with trans people, because the trans experience is real, and what we're doing when we say these things is we're taking that power away from people like me, and that's not okay. I really am not here to offend anyone. As I said, this is just my lived experience, but I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what your experience is, and I'd love for you to ask whatever questions you have. I'd love to have an open conversation with you. Thank you